I'm going to start off by saying I'm not the biggest Dream Theater fan in the world, but I'm a pretty big fan. So when I saw that Dream Theater was coming to my area, March of 2014, I said I've been listening to these guys for about 2 years now. They're pretty sweet. I think it's worth the $115 for the cheap nosebleed seat that I paid for. And I mean they're Dream Theater. They can charge whatever they want for tickets, but I'm not complaining about the price because it wasn't ridiculous, but I mean I've seen cheaper shows. But anyways, going to the set list. Uh, they opened with like a medley of stuff, like this 12-minute medley that started with the False Awakening suite, then moved into a ton of stuff from, I think, the 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence album, and it ended with The Glass Prison. And I love the way they started this song, just because, like, uh, there was a big curtain, and the curtain acts as kind of a screen where you see this big montage of stuff from like their first up to that point 12 albums, just like different, making fun of the different pieces of artwork, which is really cool when you see a band embrace like all the aspects of their discography like that, and to an extent parody it, which I think is really funny. The best kind of laughing you can do sometimes is to just laugh at yourself. So I'm glad that they're able to take the artwork and sometimes humorously manipulate it into something funny. But anyways, after the big logo like this that you see from the album cover and this T-shirt comes up, the whole curtain drops, they're already on stage, and that's when the music started. And I'm like, awesome opening. Let's see where it goes from here. And going back to the Glass Prison thing, they played maybe 2 minutes of the Glass Prison, 2.5 minutes maybe. And I just wish they would have played more, because The Glass Prison is one of my favorite Dream Theater songs. It's probably their heaviest song too, or at least consistently heavy song. Like there aren't any synth breaks or any like clean guitars. It's all just heavy 7-string guitars, 5-string basses. And like, I don't know, I just feel like they could have done a lot more with that last song, because the breakdown of that song from like 11 and a half minutes to like 12 and a half minutes, that 1 minute where it's like super heavy and they're just basically just grading down in a more traditional heavy metal sense, like like I just feel like they could have really milked that more. But regardless, it was a great opening song. And like, needless to say, I was really looking forward to this show because like John Petrucci, I think, in my opinion, is tied with Buckethead for being the greatest living guitarist in the world, because just his technical ability mixed with his melodic ideas are just, as well as his knowledge of guitar and music, is just fantastic. And John Mayung, he's not my favorite bassist, but he's in my top 5. And if you pay attention to like some of my original bass compositions and like my favorite bass parts videos, you'll notice that some of the parts are really John Mayung influenced. Like with I sometimes I do a lot of harmonic stuff and a lot of like tapping chords. That's partially John Mayung, partially Stu Ham. Like Stu Ham's another awesome bassist who like I would love to see perform live someday. But regardless of that, I just feel like there's the one thing that got me about this show was the lack of, I don't want to say energy because they were really into it, really fighting, but just, I don't know, they didn't really look like they were having fun to me. Like, Mike Mangini and Jordan Rudess were the only two players on stage who actually looked like they were having a good time. Because if you ever watch Jordan, he's like doing his thing on the keyboard and he like looks into the camera and waves to the audience, and it's just so funny and it gets such a reaction out of people, and he has such an expressive face and he's just so great. And Mike Mangini, at this point he had been in Dream Theater for about 4 years, and like you can tell he's happy to be there. You can tell he's having fun with it, drumming, but I don't know, it's just not the same as Portnoy. And for the record, I never saw Portnoy live, but just based on footage I've seen and comparing the two, Portnoy just seemed like he had more energy. He had more zest. He had that stage presence that Mangini lacks. Like, as far as technical ability goes, not necessarily technical knowledge, but I think as far as technical ability goes, they're about the same, and they're both equally capable of playing each other's music. But it's just Portnoy had all the talent, all the technical prowess, and the stage presence. And that's why I was really sad to hear that he left Dream Theater. And in fact, I got into Dream Theater like right when Portnoy left. So just call it bad timing on my part, whatever you want. But, oh, and one thing I've noticed about Mike, I feel like the other members of Dream Theater are slowly Portnifying him. Like, if you pay attention to, like, the beginning of his Dream Theater career to where he's at now, like, Mike Mangini used to be a relatively normal-looking human being, where he had pretty short hair and he would just wear a t-shirt and jeans. But now he's wearing tank tops, his hair's longer, like, I swear he started getting tattoos just like Portnoy too. Like, if you just look at pictures of him 2010 to him now 2015, you'll notice the difference. And it's actually kind of funny looking back on it. Like, we are using you to fill the void Portnoy has created. But, I mean, yeah. And as far as James LaBrie goes, I've never been a fan of his voice. I've never been a fan of his style of singing. Like, but I mean, he sounds really good live, and you can tell he's had training, and his voice on these last two albums has been really good. I don't know what he's been doing to help with his voice, but I mean, he sounded really good live, and he sounds really good on the last two albums. So, he at least has that going for him. He's by no means a bad singer. It's just I don't really like his voice a whole lot, is all I'm saying. And I forget how many songs into it was, but when he says, like, "Hello, Philadelphia," because I saw this in Philadelphia, and it was the show right after they recorded Breaking the Fourth Wall, that new DVD release that I still haven't got. I mean, why do I need the DVD when I saw it live? Who am I kidding? I'm still going to get the DVD anyway. But all I remember him talking about was that whenever we come to Philly, we love to eat. Have you guys ever been to that, the Reading Diner, is it called? And everybody goes wild, yeah! I mean, I personally haven't been there, but I'm guessing it's a pretty happening place. And then he made a joke about how much, like, they had to drag Mike out because, like, he ate so much or something. And I don't know, that got a laugh out of people too. Um, but anyways, they started off with the entire first set was mostly stuff from the Mangini albums, from A Dramatic Turn of Events and Dream Theater, the self-titled album. And for the most part, yeah, it pretty much sounded exactly like the record. And except for the Breaking All Illusion solo. You know that solo about 7 minutes into Breaking All Illusions where John Petrucci starts off slow, but then it gradually builds and builds into this big shred fest? Like, it's my favorite Dream Theater guitar solo and one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. And I was so excited to see this solo live, and John Petrucci, I don't know if it was a mistake, like if he genuinely made a mistake, but he like really milked 2 notes, and he played it so differently than how you hear it on the album. He's like, you know how the first couple notes are or something like that. He's like, and like people in the audience just kind of laughed because they thought, and he like smiled and looked at them like, yeah, you know I'm not playing this like the album, don't you? And then after acknowledging that, he intentionally just milked another note just to play it differently, just to play along with them. And then he proceeded to play the rest of the solo as is, verbatim off the album. And the intermission in between the 2 sets was, it's one of my favorite intermissions because they're basically just playing internet clips of people covering all their songs, which I think is really cool because you're saying, hey, we see that you guys are inspired by this music to the point where you want to play your own version of it. And we pay attention to that. And we think it's cool. And we think it's cool to the point where we can put it up on the monitor at every single show of this entire tour for a grand total of hundreds of thousands of people to see. Which, I mean, props to them. I mean, that's a really cool idea. And, like, if I ever had to manage, like, a band being on stage, that's what I would do as the intermission. I would just play like clips from YouTube videos of people covering like all the band's songs, which, I mean, that would be awesome. Oh, and over the course of this whole set list, they did not play Metropolis, they did not play The Spirit Carries On, which are my 2 favorite Dream Theater songs in the whole wide world, and they did not play them. I'm still angry about it to this day. I could rant all about that, but just I'll spare you for now. Oh, and going back to the energy thing and the having fun thing, like Jordan and Mike looked like they were really into it, but John and John, the 2 Johns, Mayung and Petrucci, I was almost intrigued by just how stiff they were on stage. Like, John Petrucci, like, a lot of the time, he was just, like, standing in this, like, deep power stance. And I mean, if that's what makes him such an awesome guitarist, I'd like to try that, see if it works. But Mayung, I mean, I swear he did not leave that one spot the whole time he was playing. He was literally feet together, legs together, just fingering along. And I'm like, what? What's Mayung doing? I mean, his playing was immaculate. He did not make any mistakes, and he's one of the best bassists in the world, don't get me wrong, but just, I remember seeing footage of him on the Awake tour, which was at that point 20 years ago, and he was like headbanging along the line, like, and I'm like, where's that Ma Young? I want to see that Ma Young on stage, not this stiff board. Just, again, I'm probably nitpicking at this point, but, I mean, overall, they know how to put on a show at this point. It's just, I felt they could have been more into it. Like, they needed to take a 5-hour energy, just like gulp one down before going on stage. But anyways, the second act was all stuff, like a bunch of different stuff from the Awake album, stuff they supposedly haven't even played live ever. So it was really cool to see those songs because I feel like Dream Theater, musically speaking, peaked somewhere in the 90s, like in between Images and Words and, shoot, I'm forgetting the name of their fourth album, Into Infinity something. I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for forgetting that album that came out in 97. So it was really cool to hear that style live. And it was cool to see their big hits like Lie from that time being live. And it actually, I don't know if it was because I was wearing earplugs. Like I said in my Lamb of God review, I always wear earplugs when I go to shows because of me going deaf at that show. But, like, I don't know, the guitars on the studio version of Lie are really, like, crunchy sounding and have a lot of bite to them, but his music, man, is like had a really deep, booming kind of tone to it, kind of like almost like a grunge kind of tone. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. It just tonally sounded a little different, is all I'm saying. And it just put me off a little bit, like, or at least threw me off. Like, huh? Wait, I know this is Lie, but wait, are they doing something a little differently? I don't know. But anyways, they did Illumination Theory in its entirety, all 22 minutes of it, and you know how there's a string section from like 7 minutes to 11 minutes into the song, that 4-minute just section of a string ensemble? They just kind of went off stage for that, which, to just let it play out, and it kind of makes me wish I had seen it recorded like at the what's it called, in Boston for the DVD, because they did have a symphony for that song and it would have been awesome to see it performed live. But at least they had this really cool animation, kind of like this abstract art animation thing, and I don't know, it was really neat, and like it was just something for you to sit there and just look at. And my mouth just kind of gaped open, staring at it. And that reminds me, for a majority of the show, everybody except the people in the standing room kind of sat down. I guess, well, it's hard to, like, stand up and be retroactive in an environment where it's all just, like, seating. And technically, this set had the longest encore I've ever seen at a show ever, because James LaBrie was like, after Illumination Theory, James LaBrie said, "Okay, thank you, good night," and then they went off stage for like 3 minutes, and then they went back on stage and played for a whole another 45 minutes, and I'm like, is this an encore or a third act? Because you're playing what? You played the whole 1928 overture. You played Strange Deja Vu, The Dance of Eternity, and I'm really glad I got to see The Dance of Eternity because that's one of my all-time favorite Dream Theater songs. It has a lot of really cool runs, a lot of really cool licks, and like the bass solo, I was really grateful I could see that live. And then finally Free, I don't know. I never really liked this song, but it was cool to see it live, I guess. Like, I'm probably gonna have to go back and give it a second listen just because at the time, for me personally, it didn't really do much for me, but a lot of people were really into it, so I'm guessing it resonates with Dream Theater fans, so I'm gonna have to give that a second listen. And I totally forgot a little fun Dream Theater trivia. At the show, James LaBrie said that at the time, they hadn't decided what Breaking the Fourth Wall was going to be called, so they were still like deciding on a name for the DVD. And he said that since he was Canadian, they were going to call it something like, I forget exactly what he said, but something A. Just like the most Canadian sentence you could possibly think of, and just like throwing it on there. And like I feel like they really should have done that because it would have shown that they have a sense of humor. And I feel like too many bands take themselves too seriously. And that's one of the reasons I love Tenacious D and I love Primus. They don't take themselves seriously and they're very self-aware and they just have fun with it. And if Dream Theater did that, I would have gained yet another ounce of respect for them for doing that. Yeah, I mean, overall, again, I'm glad I went to this show. It was really cool to see them live. The musicianship was superb. The playing was superb. It sounded great. And despite the lack of energy, they really got me going, and I was really into the music. Because when I listen to Dream Theater's music, I find, especially with the longer songs, I don't know why, but it's just Dream Theater music where I just kind of skip around parts of the songs, like, and just get to the parts I like. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the way they write music, the way they structure music, but I found that when you're in a scenario, like a concert, like I was at, where there's no skip button and no fast forward button or no scroll button, you just have to sit there and watch it. And by just sitting down and watching it, you gain a greater appreciation for that artist's music. So at the very least, that's what I got out of this show. So I look forward to Dream Theater's work in the future, and if they're ever touring in my area again, I'll definitely check them out.